Welcome to 401k TV. I'm Tim Kelly. I'm here at the campus, the Arlington campus of Virginia Tech. My guest today is Don Trone of 3 Ethos. Don, welcome.
Thank you, Tim. Yep.
Don, today I want to talk a little bit about the DOL rule. I want to talk about the executive memorandum that President Trump issued regarding the DOL rule. Came as a surprise to some, but not to all folks. We saw in the DOL rule pretty much it was thought that there was going to be a delay in the rule, and then we found out that the actual final copy of that memorandum did not include a delay, but an evaluation, one of what, if any, harm is being done to the participants, the end users, and what, if any, harm or unnecessary burden it was putting on the industry. Why don't you comment on both of those issues, Don?
Sure. So I like to refer to the DOL rules as the goat rodeo. I've been opposed to the rules from the get-go.
So that's not a term of endearment?
No, not at all. No, I have, in fact, by way of background, I've been involved with the fiduciary movement for 30 years. I mean, it's been my passion. And one of the objectives behind the work has always been to improve the investment decision-making process of both advisors and trustees. The DOL rules have done nothing to improve the investment decision-making process. They have done nothing to elevate or improve the professional standards of the industry.
Now, Don, let me just clarify something. Are you talking about the DOL rule that's about to go into effect on April 10th? You know, the one that was put in place by the Obama administration? Are we talking about that, or are we talking about a string of things over 30 years? Be a little bit more specific.
Yeah, I'm talking about the current rules that are about to become applicable April 10th.
Okay.
And I don't believe they will become applicable April 10th.
You think there's going to be a delay before then?
Yes, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, I'm not an attorney, and I don't have any inside knowledge as to the workings of the White House. But I think the rules in their current form are a classic example of the type of overreach and overregulation that the president is opposed to.
Okay.
So I think this confusion over the memorandum.
Don, you started with some background, okay? The DOL rule, the fiduciary rule as we know it, casts a net, if you will, over the entire industry.
Yes.
So, you know, you and I talked a little bit before this segment, and we were talking a little bit about perhaps there was, I'm not sure what to call it, whether it was naivety or whether it was just fear that the folks at the Obama administration just threw a wide net over the entire industry and said, okay, everybody's going to be a fiduciary now. That doesn't seem to be a solution that an expert would implement. And I'm trying to be fair here. I know you've got your own take on that. Give me your take on that. Okay, and then we'll get into the other issue.
So what we would say, there's two comments we'd have to that. First of all, in an effort to maximize the number of advisors subject to the standard, they minimized the standard. That's one reason we're opposed to it. Second reason, from our evaluation, the people that prepared the rules did not have expertise in existing fiduciary best practices, nor were they familiar with investment management services. It's almost as if this team or this group that wrote the rules worked in isolation. Now, I know they're going to claim that they got X number of tens of thousands of letters and they took input and they listened to everybody. That doesn't mean that they understood what was being communicated.
Okay. So from an industry standpoint, is it correct to say that you feel that there is damage being done? There's an unfair burden on the industry, on advisors or people who are not even advisors that are now tapped with the fiduciary wand. Is there damage being done to the industry? And then the follow-up would be, okay, if there's damage being done to the industry, it's a de minimis standard, as you refer to it, Over and over, you've been the first, as far as I know, to term it that way. But so if it's hurting the industry, does that mean people are pulling back from the industry? And if so, does that hurt the individuals who now have fewer choices? That's the argument, and that's what the memorandum from President Trump sets out to determine. What's your take on that? Does the industry get hurt? Do the individuals get hurt?
I'm going to say the advisors get hurt and differentiate that from the industry. I'm not overly concerned about whether the industry is going to be hurt or not. Our industry is extremely resilient. We'll figure this out and move forward. But I am concerned about the advisors who are being told that if they follow these DOL rules, they're going to be meeting a fiduciary standard of care, and they're not. In fact, in consulting with firms, we have advised the firms, don't prepare to be compliant with the DOL rules. Prepare for your first class action lawsuit.
That's where the teeth are.
Well,
Like they said, there's no DOL paddy wagon lined up to take people out, right? They're kind of relying on the civil litigation market. Let's call it a marketplace. Let's be honest.
yeah.
Is it a safe assumption that you're saying, look, the civil litigation is going to take care of the compliance?
I'm not going to word it that way. What I am going to say, though, is I think the primary intent of the rules was to set up for civil litigation against the industry. That's the primary purpose of the rules.
Pretty powerful stick, right?
Yeah, pretty powerful stick. And that's where my concern is that when I look at what firms are doing today to prepare to comply with the new DOL rules, that preparation is not going to be sufficient for their first lawsuit. You know, the plaintiff attorney filing the lawsuit, probably the class action lawsuit against a firm, is going to be well equipped with a fiduciary checklist of best practices. And the vast majority of those best practices are not represented by the rules.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And even in a best case, it's tough to comply with them all.
Thank you. And that's the second issue, which is the harm to the participants. In my opinion, when you look at generally accepted fiduciary best practices in the industry, now this is what the industry is doing and has been doing for the last 30 years, which again is different from what the DOL is requiring. When you look at fiduciary best practices, I think you need to have a minimum account size of $250,000. If that's correct, 95% of IRA rollovers are less than that. So what kind of service are we going to provide to account balances of less than $250,000 to comply with the new rules, plus assume the additional liability that comes with the rules? And I think the outcome, the solution, is going to be what I call Stepford portfolios. So the book Stepford Wives, you know, we create this wife in the image of what we think is the ideal wife. The industry,
scary proposition.
Yeah. The industry is going to create Stepford portfolios. We're not going to create portfolios that are in the best interest of the retirement participant. We're going to create portfolios that's in the best interest of the firm. Mm-hmm. And that's not slighting the firm. That's simply a reality of, all right, if we have to take on unlimited liability for providing a retirement advice, then the investment options that are going to be made available and the advisors who are going to be permitted to serve those clients is going to be very, very limited.
Okay.
And it's going to have to be more expensive to take on the additional cost or the risk of the liability.
Well, I mean, with such a sweeping regulation, catching every marketplace and professional participant, that's the unforeseen outcome. Now, so okay, we got your take on both sides. Don, tell me before we go into a little deeper conversation, because I know you've got some things that I want to get out to our audience. Is the DOL properly suited? Are they exceeding their authority? Should they be involved in this space? And and specifically on the IRA issue, that's one area where you know, they're really, you know, moving into uncharted territory. What's your take on that?
No,
On authority.
they're not qualified. And let me back that up. To the people that are listening, whether they're advisors or plan sponsors, when was the last time somebody from the Department of Labor either came into the office of the advisor or sat with an investment committee to learn the work of retirement investing? They don't.
That would be a tough one.
That's right. So how can they possibly prepare appropriate rules and regulations for an industry and a setting that they really are not familiar with?